Welcome. It's the day after Christmas, December 26, 2025. I'm your host. I am Professor Khalil Amani, and this is Khalil Amani's World 100. All right, we're going to teach today. We're going to teach. Since we are in the festive season of Christmas, and a lot of the, pro-black Hebrew Israelites, black conscious folks, we don't celebrate Christmas because it's pagan. It's heathenish. I want to talk about it. And I'm going to bust your bubble and tell you right away that every one of us practice paganism. That's right. I don't care if you call yourself a Christian, a Jew, a Muslim, a Hebrew Israelite, or an Israelite. You practice paganism. Oh yeah, you do. I know you want to think you don't, but I'm going to prove that you do. And I'm going to further prove that if it were not for the pagans, you wouldn't have your little religion you have today. Whatever you believe in God today, you can thank the pagans for that. Facts upon facts. Let's get started. I said, I don't care, and I want to reiterate this. We are all practitioners of paganism. I don't care what you call yourself. Even if you're an atheist and a non-believer in God, even if you are a mighty, mighty Christian, you still practice paganism. Even if you think you fiend like you're above the fray of paganism, and you've dropped Christianity and now you are a Hebrew Israelite / Israelite, you think you're beyond paganism. But I'm here to tell you, you're not. And even if you're a Hebrew Israelite or an Israelite, you are still a practitioner of what is called paganism. And if you're a practitioner of paganism, that means you're a pagan. It's weird, it's strange how the whole world, if you're a Jew, Christian, or Muslim, and any of their bastard children, meaning the Hebrew Israelite movement included, you think you're more important. You think you have a higher understanding. You think that your belief in God is far removed from paganism. And I'm here to tell you it's not. The easiest way to understand that you are a pagan and a practitioner of paganism, even if you call yourself an Israelite, even if you call yourself a Hebrew Israelite, even if you call yourself a Christian, a Jew, or a Muslim, the easiest way to understand that you are really a pagan, let me hear you recite the days of the week. The days of the week. What do you call the first day of the week? You call it Sunday. And then you say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then back to Sunday. Did you know that the days of the week are days that were created from the pagan gods? Yet even as an Israelite, even as a Hebrew Israelite, even as a goody two-shoes Christian, you still say, Saturday, I'm going to go do this. Monday, I'm going to do this. Sunday, I'm going to relax. I go back to work on Monday. All of that is paganism. All of that is paganism. Sunday, the first day of the week, is named after the Norse and Germanic mythological gods. Did you know that? Did you know that Sunday comes from Norse and Germanic mythology? The gods of the Germanic peoples? I'm here to tell you, you can't escape paganism if you wanted to. Monday, also from the Norse people, Norwegian, from the Norse god, the moon, it's pagan. Tuesday, pagan. It's from the Germanic people also. Tuesday from the god Tia. You can look this stuff up. These are all pagan deities. Facts upon facts. Wednesday is another pagan day from the god Odin. Some used to call him Woden with a W. Wednesday, Woden. It was Woden's day. Woden was a Norse god, a Germanic god. Odin, aka Woden, aka Wednesday, he became. All paganistic days of the week. Thursday, same thing, a Norse god. Thursday comes from the god Thor, the god of thunder, a pagan deity. Some of y'all say deity, but it's really deity. I said Thursday comes from Thor. Some of you seen the movie Thor. You know Thor with the big old hammer. It's pagan. Yet when you say Thursday, you don't know you are actually giving credit to a pagan god named Thor. And of course Friday is also Norse and Germanic, from the gods of the Germanic peoples. Friday. And Saturday is a Roman god named after the Roman god, the Roman pagan god, Saturn. The god of wealth and agriculture and time. That's the god Saturday after the Roman god Saturn. So as much as you want to fancy yourself that you are against pagans, I have to tell you the truth. Paganism is everywhere present in our everyday lives and everything we do. How you like that? Paganism. The days of the week. I said Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday are named after pagan and heathen gods. But you're an Israelite, right? You're an Israelite, right? You hate pagans and paganism, right? You're a Christian, right? And you hate paganism, yet you go to church on Sunday after the sun god. The Germanic gods. You see? Oh, how we love to talk shit about the pagans. Oh, how we love to think that we are far removed from paganism. And then we start using words like Monday, Friday, Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday, Saturday, giving praise and credit without even knowing it to the gods of paganism, the gods of heathenism. Maybe you ought to just shut up sometime. Maybe you ought to acknowledge that you can't get away from paganism. That's right. You can't get away from paganism no matter how hard you try. Paganism is part of who we are as a people. And again, I don't care what your religion is. You can call yourself an Israelite all you want. But the minute you say that Jesus died on Wednesday and resurrected on Saturday, you just spoke pagan gods. Go! As Homer Simpson would say. Guess what else, people? The very ideal that the Judeo-Christian world has embraced, the ideal of one God. One God, not a lot of gods. Not polytheism, not henotheism, but monotheism is the belief in one God. Well, I know a lot of you all, in your superficial Mickey Mouse reading of history, religious history, you want to say that Moses invented monotheism. That's what, mainstream sorry scholarship says. They try to give the credit to Moses. But if you do a deep dive on AI and do a little bit deeper reading, you will see that there were predecessors of the one God theology before Moses. Going back to Egypt, what we would call a pagan culture again, a pagan heathen culture. We go back to the Egyptians and the pharaoh Akhenaten. Amenophis the fourth, I think he's AKA is. Akhenaten. The very concept of God as a single entity, even that, belongs to paganism. And Moses would later borrow heavily from paganism, from the pagans of the Egyptian world, and come up with his theology of one God. I just want to bust your bubble, because most of you don't know this stuff. Most of you in 2025, going into 2026, today, in the modern era, in the 21st century, most of you all have this ideal that paganism is far removed from your world. That paganism was a bunch of evil, primitive people. But the relics, aka the turd droppings, bird shit, the droppings of all your religions are wallowing in a cesspool of heathenism and paganism. I said, you might think that Moses is the inventor, the creator of monotheism, the belief in one God. But I challenge you to Google Egyptians, the king, the pharaoh, Akhenaten. Akhenaten was the first recorded person that said there's only one God, and his name is Atum Ra. Atum Ra. Some 2,000 years before Moses comes along and tries to make the Hebrew people the inventors of the monotheistic religion. Judaism, if you want to call it. And then there was Zoroaster, a Middle Eastern king. He also proclaimed that there's only one God. And his name is Ahura Mazda. You know how y'all drive those cars around called Mazdas? I got me a Mazda RX-7. I got me a Mazda this and a Mazda that. Well, it was Zoroaster, a king, who came up with the concept also of one God, and he called him Ahura Mazda. These things predate the Bible and its claim to monotheism. But these things were created by so-called pagans. Not even your monotheism, if you're a Jew, Christian, or Muslim, and all of the bastard children that comes under that Jew, Christian, Muslim umbrella. Hebrew Israelites, all y'all. Not even your claim to monotheism is special or is original. They had it in Egypt. They had it among the Persians, the belief in a one God. These were so-called pagans, so-called heathens. Oh, how we love to think that we are removed from the pagans and that what they had going on has nothing to do with you today. You're a liar. What else did the pagans give us? The pagans gave us so much. You know, Abraham, the father of many nations. Abraham, the eponymous father of the Jews, Hebrews, Israelites. Abraham, the father of the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims. Abraham, the progenitor of many nations and progenitor of the three great Western religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. That Abraham, Abraham of the Bible. Abraham of Genesis 14:13. Abraham of Genesis 15:13. Whatever it is. 14:13. Do you know his humble beginnings were in Sumer, a place called Ur of the Chaldees, amongst the pagans? It is paganism that gives you the father of many nations. Check it. Facts upon facts. I said it is paganism that gives you Abraham, who becomes the father of all you Israelites, of all you Jews, of all you Hebrews, of all of you Hebrew Israelites. It was a pagan. Abraham was a pagan. Abraham was a worshiper of Inanna. Abraham was a worshiper of many gods in the paganistic tradition. Oh, how you think you are removed from paganism when the very man that sires, the very man that fathers the three great Western religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, he was born a pagan into a paganistic world called Sumer. More specifically, Ur of the Chaldees. Genesis 10, Genesis 11, it's right there. How ironic that you Israelites and you Christians talk smack and shit about pagans and paganism when your father, your eponymous, and your progenitor was a motherfucking pagan himself. I don't believe you heard me, Junior. I said Abraham of the Bible was a pagan, born into paganism, believed in the pagan deities of his day, and then later on he changed up. But how do we sweat? How do we have beef? How do we talk shit about paganism when the pagans gave us the leader of our three great religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam? The father of those religions was a pagan. Abraham was a pagan. I'm just giving you an outline to show you folks that those of you who think you are removed from paganism, you ain't removed from it. You know what else the pagans gave you Christians and you Israelites? The pagans gave you all the serpent. You know the one in Genesis and Revelations? The serpent. That's a pagan motif. That's a pagan archetype. The serpent had been around since time immemorial. And not only did the serpent was around, the serpent was a good guy. Prior to the bastardization of the serpent by the Jews, Hebrews, and Israelites. But the serpent you got in Genesis 3, you borrowed him, you copied him, you co-opted him, you plagiarized the original serpent. The original serpent was a good guy. The original serpent was good in Sumer, Akkad, Babylon, Egypt, Assyria, Greece, and Rome. The serpent was a good guy. The serpent stood for wisdom, eternal life, wise counsel, and procreation. All those things sound good to me. Procreation is a good thing. Eternal life is a good thing. Wise counsel is a good thing. Everlasting life is a good thing. This is how the serpent was viewed before the Hebrews and the Jews and the Israelites would bastardize him and make him show up in Genesis chapter 3 as the person that brings deception, evil, and sin into the world. But the very serpent, he was borrowed from paganism. The serpent of the Bible is not an original archetype. The serpent of the Bible is not an original motif. The serpent of the Bible is not an original character. It is a borrowed character from the annals and the pages of paganism. I'm just letting you know. Abraham was a pagan. The serpent comes out of paganism. And then you all corrupt him. When I say you all, you Jews, you Israelites, you Hebrews, you corrupt the serpent. Even brother Jesus, you know Jesus Christ in the New Testament, he too understood the mythology of serpents as wise. And thus Jesus would say in the New Testament, "Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves." Why would Jesus call the serpent wise? Jesus never calls the serpent evil, bad, corrupt, sinful. No, Jesus puts the serpent in the same archetypal mode as the Egyptians, Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, and Babylonians, and Greeks and Romans. And what is that? The serpent as wise. The serpent as a counselor. And Jesus used the serpent in proper context. Just as the heathen and the pagans had presented him. Jesus' view of the serpent is in line, in step with the pagan view of the serpent. How you like that? Oh, but Jesus is your man, right? I said, Jesus is your man. But we got Jesus in the New Testament spitting that ism about the serpent, just like the ancient Egyptians and Babylonians and Assyrians and so forth, as a wise counselor. Why would Jesus say that? Because Jesus understood the archetypal serpent from antiquity. Jesus understood the motif of the serpent as wise, as lawgiver, as righteous counselor. Thus he would say, again, be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. You never thought about it, didn't you? You never thought, why does Jesus say, be ye therefore wise as serpents? Whoever said that serpents were wise? I'll tell you who said serpents were wise. The pagans. That's who said it. Jesus was fully engulfed in paganism when he said that shit. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. And every time you quote Jesus, where he says, be wise as serpents, why don't you give credit? Why don't you pay homage to paganism? Because that's who said it first. The pagans created the symbol of the serpent. The Hebrew writers in the Old Testament, they didn't create the serpent. All they did was flip the script and bastardize the wonderful righteous serpent. And you wonder why today you have secret societies like the Freemasons and the Illuminatis and Eastern Stars and, the Knights Templars and folks like that seem to suggest that they give reverence to the serpent today. But in our ignorant Judeo-Christian mindset today, if we hear that the Freemasons are praising the serpent, our mind goes back to Genesis chapter 3. We go back to the bastardized version. We go back to the Johnny-come-lately version of the serpent. Because the Bible's version of the serpent, it's a Johnny-come-lately version. The serpent of Genesis chapter 3, he's a Johnny-come-lately motherfucker. He's a late arrival on the scene. He's a concoction and a bastardization of the wise and all-knowing and life-giving and wise counsel serpent of all the other nations that precede the Jewish nation. Even Jesus knew that, else he would have never called the serpent wise in the first place. I'm just lecturing to let you know that as much as you think you are removed from paganism, you're not. Each day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that's all paganism. Your forefather Abraham, he's a pagan, born into paganism. Your fucked up serpent in Genesis 3, he comes right out of paganism. Your Christmas tree today is paganism. Jeremiah chapter 10, 1 through 5. Learn not the way of the heathen. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest and fashion it that it move not, and hang silver and gold on it. It's a Christmas tree. It's a product of paganism. And I ain't mad at the Christmas tree. Don't get it fucked up. I'm not thinking like you all, ooh, take the Christmas tree down. Put the Christmas tree up. Because every time we put the Christmas tree up, I don't care if we're Christian or not, we are paying homage to the pagans. The whole Christian world, every Christmas tree all over the world is paying homage to paganism. Hot damn. Yeah. What else do we get from paganism? You know this little thing that the Christians invented called the Trinity? You know, the Trinity, the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. That thing that scholars have labeled. No, the word Trinity is not in the Bible, but the model and the ideal and the application is everywhere present in the New Testament. So scholars gave it a name, Trinity. Did you know that that's a pagan ideal? It's a pagan concept. Going back to Egypt with Osiris and Isis and the baby Horus. The real Trinity, 3,000-4,000 years before the Jesus Trinity. It's paganistic. I don't believe how much we like to throw and shit on paganism. Like we are, like paganism is an island in the middle of the ocean. Like we have nothing to do with paganism. Yet we come up with concepts like the Trinity or the Triune, the three in one, the three gods in one, which are right there in Egypt 3,000-4,000 years before you get the Jesus Trinity shit. Goddamn. The Trinity is a heathen, it is a pagan religious device and ideal and theology. What else do we get from paganism? I'm just talking right now. The ideal of a dying and rising God. As in Jesus dies on the cross, buried for 3 days and rises up. Guess who had that ideal a millennia or two before the Christians came up with it? The pagans did. The ideal of a resurrected son, a resurrected God, it comes out of the annals and pages of paganism. Now, I know I'm just talking right now. I know I ain't dropped no scholars on you. But you can get to Googling. Go to AI. Go to Chat GPT. Write down what I'm saying and then go fact check me. Because what I'm spitting is facts upon facts. I'm just lecturing. You know I can pull the books. I can pull the books and show you the shit. But right now I'm a little lazy and I just want to lecture on this day after Christmas. That you as a Christian, as a Jew, and as a Muslim, as a Hebrew Israelite or a funky ass Israelite, you are just as close to the pagans and paganism as they were back then. I know you fancy yourself not, but I'm here to tell you, as Sanetta and Nepal Shadar would say, I'm busting pinatas today. I'm busting your pinata. What else comes from the isles of paganism? Easter. Easter. The very word Easter comes from the Germanic god known as Eostar. There's different ways to say it. There's different ways to say it. Eostar. Eostra. Eostra was a female goddess. Eostra was a fertility goddess. Eostra was a god of fucking and sucking. You know, in Germany and Russia, those places. Among the white folks. Nordic, Germanic. Eostra, go look it up. E-O-S-T-R-E. From the goddess, from the sexual goddess Eostra, we get Easter. That's where the word Easter comes from. Not only do we get the word Easter, we get the goddesses, Eostras, we get her egg also. You ever wonder what does an egg have to do with Easter and the resurrection of Christ? You ever wondered that? Rabbits laying eggs? You ever wondered? Because you know rabbits don't lay eggs. But the egg that we have in Easter, the Easter egg, it is a product and a symbol of the fertility goddess Eostra. If you didn't know. Why the egg? The egg symbolizes fertility. Fertility symbolizes fucking, making babies. So every Sunday, when you get your children dressed in their Sunday best, their Easter suits and their pretty Easter dresses, and I love Easter. Don't take me like any of these other motherfuckers teaching about pagans. I'm saying shout out to the pagans. I'm not saying, oh, it's paganism, it's bad, shame on you Christians. That's not my angle. My angle is giving props, giving due respect, and paying homage to the pagans, to those who precede us in our religio-spiritual growth and knowledge. It was the pagans that did that. Facts upon facts. So Easter belongs to the pagans. Of course, we already know Christmas belongs to the pagans. December 25th used to be part of the Sol Invictus cult. Brumalia and Saturnalia, it was a Roman religious cult. And all Constantine did in the 4th century was merge the pagan deities and celebrations, Sol Invictus, Brumalia, Saturnalia. All he did was put all those pagan religions and their festivals, and he brought in the Christian, and he said, you know what? You niggas can get in here with all this Roman shit, and we'll just have one big celebration on December 25th. No reputable scholar in the world thinks that Jesus was born on December 25th. None. And we know exactly why December 25th was chosen. Because December 25th was a pagan holiday amongst the Greeks and the Romans. I'm gonna go. I got books and all this stuff. I got a little book here, Our Pagan Christmas. All that's in here. The First Council of Nice or Nicaea, all that about Christmas is in here. I'm not just spouting out shit. I'm just giving you an overview for those of you who think that you are removed. And so many of you Christians and all of you Hebrew Israelites and Israelites, you let yesterday pass, Christmas Day, yesterday. And because you don't practice Christmas, you wouldn't go over to grandmama and them house, you wouldn't go over to mama and them house and have ham and turkey and all those great sidings, mac and cheese and all that great stuff they make for Thanksgiving, for Christmas. You wouldn't go because it was Christmas Day. Because you fiend yourself above the fray of being a pagan. Yet you will say, sundown Friday, we start our Sabbath. Friday is a pagan day of the week. The very word Friday comes from paganism. You see how you can't get away from this shit? You might have not had some Christmas ham. You might have not had some Christmas turkey. But sundown Friday, you're going to say, oh, it's sundown Friday, let me prepare myself for the Sabbath. You're still invoking paganism. You can't get away from it. So we know Christmas is all about paganism. Halloween, paganism, the Druids, All Hallows Eve, it's all paganism. All paganism. It's all paganism. You know what else comes from paganism? That's in your Bible? You know what else comes from paganism? You know that little story in the Bible where a little fella named Noah built an ark, and 8 people got in the ark, and a big flood came for 40 days and 40 nights. And God destroyed the whole earth with a flood. You know where that story comes from? Paganism. You can read it in books like, let's see if I can find my book. You can read about that story in the Epic of Gilgamesh, Sumero-Babylonian folklore and mythology that talks about the Great Flood. And many of the details in the Epic of Gilgamesh's flood, they coincide with the Noah flood story. But here's the difference. This story about the flood is about 1,000 years older. I said this flood story is 1,000 years older than your Bible flood story. So before there was a Noah, before you heard of Noah, there was a little fella in his book named Utnapishtim. He was the first Noah. Paganism. 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 I'm about to wrap this up because I'm just my throat just tired right now. We call this an introduction. But I want to clearly show you examples of how, I don't care what you think you are, the pagans still run your world. Even by just calling the particular days of the week, you are dealing with paganism. You ain't no better than the pagans. I will do one reading. I want to read from a book by Gerald Massey. If you don't know who Gerald Massey is, then you probably should step up your religion, mythology game. Gerald Massey's lectures, he wrote extensively on religion, history, and mythology. But Gerald Massey, he makes the point that I've been making this whole time. That if it were not for the people you call pagans, you wouldn't have Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. If it weren't for paganism, you wouldn't have the Torah, the Gospels, or the Quran. What Gerald Massey is going to say here is basically that you Bible folks and the people that created the Bible, they're plagiarizers, they're thieves, they are filchers. They got that 5-finger discount thing, you know? People that steal, we call them 5-finger discount. So let me end with just reading a quick little paragraph that sums up everything I've said for the last 50 minutes, 45 minutes. Gerald Massey's lectures. Here it is right here. The chapter is called The Coming Religion. Here it is right here. These people have a vision of their own, and as it was bequeathed to them, they will not part with it. I'll go back over this. We'll read it first and then I'll break it down because it's heavy. These people have a vision of their own, and as it was bequeathed to them, they will not part with it, even though they have to close their eyes to see. They will die in the good old faith. In the good old faith. But that is what others of us cannot do. We have but just begun to ascertain the meaning of the good old facts that preceded the good old faith. We are finding out that names the most hallowed are spurious counterfeits of the ancient gods. We are learning that the literary fortunes of the Bible were made by mythology and filched from the peoples who have been spoiled as pagans and accursed as the spawn of Satan. That's a lot of shit. I know I gotta break it down for you because it's too deep for most of y'all. I'm gonna break it down for you. Just put on your thinking caps. I'm gonna break this down. Gerald Massey is saying, he's talking about all of you Christians, all of you Muslims, all of you Jews, all of you Hebrews, all of you Hebrew Israelites, all of you Israelites, anybody that believes in the Bible or the Quran, he's talking to. You got it? He starts out by saying, these people are the people I just mentioned. The Jew, the Christian, the Muslim, the Israelite, all y'all. These people have a vision of their own. Y'all have your own vision. What is that vision? That you all created all those stories in the Bible and the Quran, that they're original stories. That's your own vision he's talking about. That these people have a vision of their own. And as it was bequeathed to them, they will not part with it. In other words, you niggas that believe in the Bible, the Quran, you will not part with it. You will not give it up. You're going to go to your grave believing that the Bible and the Quran are the holy inspired, words of God. It was given to you. It was bequeathed to you. And you will not part with it. You won't part from it. You're going to take it to your graves because you think you got the truth. That's what he starts with. Massey talking, all you Bible believing niggas. However you believe in the Bible. Seventh-day, Jehovah, Catholic, Israelite, it don't matter. All you Bible believing motherfuckers, that book was bequeathed to you. And you will not part with it because you have been wholly convinced that's from God. That's what he's saying. And as it was bequeathed to them, they will not part with it, even though they have to close their eyes to see. God damn. What does Gerald Massey mean when he says that you Bible believers have to close your eyes to see? It's almost like they're saying eyes wide shut. Massey says, when it comes to you Bible thumpers, you Bible believers, you have to close your eyes to see. What he's saying is that you refuse to look at the evidence that says there are earlier understandings of divinity, of the deity, earlier writings from who? From who? From the heathens, from the pagans, where the Bible gets its ideals from, where the Quran gets its ideals from. But you have to close your eyes so that you don't see the truth. You close your eyes so you can see only the Bible. That's what he's saying here. Even though they have to close their eyes to see. You close your eyes to see, which means you only want to see the book that you believe in. You don't want to see that the Bible stories, motifs, and archetypes, narratives and stories, and all those stories, they can be found in earlier religious traditions. You close your eyes to the predecessors. You close your eyes to the people who precede the Bible. You close your eyes. Now, with your eyes closed, you can see only the Bible. That's what he's saying. Goddamn. And he says, all you Bible believers, they, meaning all you Bible believers, will die in the good old faith. What's the good old faith? The good old faith is any type of religion wherein the Bible is your main source of authority, your primary source. That's the good old faith. It doesn't matter whether it's Judaism or Christianity or Hebrew Israelite, Catholicism or Seventh-day Adventist. All you folks use the Bible. And so Gerald Massey calls all you Bible believers the good old faith, because you are denying the existence of the people who precede the Bible. He's getting to that. Yeah. You will die. These people, these Bible believers, they will die in the good old faith. But that is what others of us, like me, cannot do. I am not going to die in the good old faith. I'm just not. Because I see where the Bible gets its stories from. I give the middle finger to the good old faith, the Bible stories. But that is what others of us cannot do. Me, and others like me. We have but just begun to ascertain the meaning of the good old facts. You wonder why I keep saying facts upon facts? I'm going to get a t-shirt that says facts upon facts. But you wonder why I keep saying facts upon facts. People like Gerald Massey is why I say facts upon facts. Because we are just beginning to ascertain the meaning of the good old facts. Well, what are the good old facts? The good old facts is that there are writings about divinity and God that predate and precede the Bible. And we understand from having read those writings, when we read the Bible, we understand where the Bible gets its stories and motifs and archetypes from. That's the good old truth. Yeah. We have but just begun to ascertain the meaning of the good old facts. Now here it is, the good old facts that preceded the good old faith. See, the good old faith is Judaism, Christianity, Islam. The good old faith is the Bible and the Quran. That's the good old faith. Organized religion. World religions that are accepted. Judeo-Christian thought. Things that the mass of the people accept as truth. Between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, you got more than the half of the world's population believing in those three particular belief systems. Massey calls that the good old faith. Yeah. But Massey says, we have but just begun to ascertain the meaning of the good old facts. The good old facts that that came before the good old faith. that came before the good old Western religions, that came before Judaism, that came before Christianity, that came before Islam. And what came before those religions? Paganism. He's going to say it in just a minute. We are finding out that the names, the most hallowed or holy, we are finding out that the names most hallowed, the most holy names, Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahuwah, Yahweh, Jehovah, God, the Lord, El Shaddai, Elohim, Adonai, the names most hallowed, the names most holy, we are finding out they are nothing but spurious counterfeits of the ancient gods. Goddamn. You got to be on one to hear this shit here. Gerald Massey just says, we are finding out that the names of the most hallowed gods are no more than spurious counterfeits of the ancient gods. Yeah. We are learning that the literary fortunes of the Bible were made by mythology. See, you got these fuck niggas like Struggle Doctrine. I don't believe in no mythology. That's why you got to study the world of myth. Because when you read somebody like Gerald Massey, he's going to tell you, we are learning that the literary fortunes of the Bible, the literary fortunes of the Bible. Where's my other Bible? I don't want to hold that big one up. It's too big to hold up. Holy Bible, Holy Bible, Holy Bible. Well, here's one right here. Holy Bible. Holy Bible. Holy Bible. We are learning that the literary fortunes of the Bible were made by mythology and filched. You know what it means when you filch? To filch means to steal, to grab up, emulate, copy, imitate, plagiarize. He says, we are learning that the literary fortunes, the money that has been made with this book, the literary fortunes of the Bible were made by mythology and filched and pilfered and stolen from the peoples, here it is, from the peoples who have been spoiled, you know, like spoiled milk. You can't drink spoiled milk, it's bad. And that's the way we look at the pagans today. We look at the pagans as spoiled milk. Ew! Pah, nasty. Gerald Massey says, we are learning that the literary fortunes of the Bible were made by mythology and filched and pilfered and stolen from the peoples who had been spoiled as pagans and are cursed as the spawns of Satan. I'm about to wrap it up here. But I think that's worth a second reading. Now that I've broken it down, let's let you see it again. And these people, Bible believers, all Bible believers, I don't care what you call yourself, Hebrew, Israelite, Jew, Christian, even Muslim, all Bible believers, and Quran believers, of course. But all Bible believers, these people, these Bible believers have a vision of their own. And as it was bequeathed to them, they will not part with it. In other words, you're never going to believe that there is something that came before the Bible. You're not going to part with it. You're going to go to your grave. Here it goes. Even though they have to close their eyes to see. That's why you have niggas like Struggle Doctrine say, I only believe in KJV, King James Version. King James Version of the Bible. That's my only primary source. I don't look at those other books. If it ain't in the Bible, I don't look at it. I don't care about those lost books of the Bible. I don't care about the books of Egypt and the books of other nations. I don't care. That's what it means when you have to close your eye. To close your eyes to see, it means you have already been brainwashed by one book, and you close your eyes to the rest of the books written about divinity and the deity and about God that come before your Bible. You close your eyes to that so you can only see the Bible. You Bible believers, they will die in the good old faith. The good old faith represents all Bible believers. All Bible believers, no matter what you call yourself, if the Bible is your tool of belief, you are of the good old faith. But that is what others of us cannot do. See, this is me. I'm one of those others. I can't do that because I've read other stuff that's older than the Bible, and I can see where the Bible gets its stories from. Got it? We have but just begun to ascertain the meaning of the good old facts. See the good old facts? The good old facts is that there are religious and spiritual writings that are older than the Bible. That's a fact. That's a good old fact. See, that preceded the good old faith. In other words, the good old facts, the good old facts precedes the good old faith. The good old facts of other religious material written before that of the good old faith of the good old Bible. We are finding out that names most hallowed, the word hallowed means holy, and that names the most hallowed, meaning names of God, we are finding out that names of God that are most hallowed or most holy are spurious counterfeits of the ancient gods. See all those so-called pagan gods? Those pagan gods, the names you call God now, Jehovah and Yahweh, 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 Yahuwah, all those names, Elohim, Adonai, El Shaddai, all those names are nothing but spurious counterfeits of even ancient gods, older gods. We are learning that the literary fortunes of the Bible, the literary fortunes of the Bible were made by what? Mythology. So when an ignoramus like Struggle Doctrine says, I don't deal in mythology, he just don't know what the fuck. His eyes, he has to close his eyes. He has to close his eyes to even see. He has to close his eyes to the Sumerians and the Akkadians and the Babylonians and the Egyptians and the Assyrians. He has to close his eyes to their stuff because it's older than the Bible stuff. So when he closes his eyes, people like Struggle Doctrine and most of you Bible thumpers, you can finally see. You only see the Bible. See? But the literary fortunes of the Bible were made by mythology. In other words, they came from earlier sources. And filched, see the word filched, that means to steal. It means to plagiarize. The literary fortunes of the Bible were made by mythology and stolen and filched from the peoples who have been spoiled, like spoiled milk you don't like to drink, as pagans. And accursed as the spawn of Satan. All right, I want you to see it again after I broke it down for you. We teach over here if you didn't know. And so, people, you ain't saying shit. Just because your mouth proclaims that you're against paganism and you think you have nothing to do with paganism, that's because you're ignorant. You have to close your eyes to see. What a great phrase. What a great phrase that Gerald Massey came up with. What a great book. The masses of Bible believers in general, they have to close their eyes to see. It means they close their eyes to things that are obviously older than the Bible, things that obviously predate the Bible, things that obviously show us where the Bible gets its stories about floods and all this shit. The pagans gave it to us. But because you hate pagans and paganism so much, you have made them like spoiled milk. You have made the pagans like the accursed of Satan. And then you go to church on Sunday, a pagan name. You go to Juma prayer on Friday, a pagan name. You're an Israelite and your Sabbath day is Saturday after the pagan Saturn. I just want to bring it to you. We're not done with this. I just want to give a quick talk on this stupid and felonious ideal that you Bible thumpers think you are so far removed from paganism. As we go deeper into this, you're going to find out that the pagans are your mothers and fathers. Without the pagans, you have no Bible. Without the pagans, you have no Quran. Without paganism, you don't have Abraham, who is your father of all three of the Western religions. Paganism is as religious as apple pie is to America. All right? We'll talk to you soon. My voice is just straining, so I'm going to give it up here. Talk to you soon. Peace.